What is going on, everyone? And in this video, I'll be giving you my UFC Vegas 53 main card predictions for the upcoming event taking place this Saturday, April 30th, 2022. And we're coming off UFC Vegas 52, where I went 5-5, so not the best. Started off pretty rough. The main event, getting that one right, Jessica Andrade defeating Amanda Lemos by submission. That was a pretty good win for her. Didn't really see her getting a submission that quickly in the first round. I knew she was strong, but I just didn't see her getting that victory there. I mean, the co-main event of the evening, we had Claudio Puelles taking on Clay Guida. He was able to get that submission. Just nasty knee bar, very slick with it. He's one of these guys where he could actually be getting dominated, but he just pulls off these submissions so quickly that it really doesn't matter. And it's one of those things that could be really annoying because you could be winning the fight and then this guy is just able to find these submissions pretty good. So that was good to see. But yeah, Lando Venata not getting the victory over Charles Jourdain, that's unfortunate. Charles Jourdain looked very good getting that win via submission. Montana De La Rosa not getting it done. Macy Barber getting the unanimous decision. But overall, it was kind of a sketchy card. The Mike Jackson fight, that was kind of weird. Not the best card in the world, went 5-5. So I guess it could have gone worse, but we move on into the next one, obviously. So we got to get into the next event. So in the next event, this card is a lot better, I think, especially the main event, co-main event, Andrei, Fili, Jared Gordon, Grant Dawson, Joanderson, Brito, Darren Elkins taking on Tristan, Connelly, Krzysztof, Jotko taking on Gerald Meerschaert. So I think main card is going to be really good on this fight card. So this is more of like a fight night that I think people want to see versus the one we just saw. This one doesn't feel like it was thrown together at the last minute, and that's always good to see. So let's go ahead and jump into this card. So in the first fight on the main card, we have Krzysztof Jotko taking on Gerald GM3 Meerschaert. And for this fight, we've got Jotko coming in with a 23-5 record, 34-14 for Gerald Meerschaert. And I think this is going to be one of those, it's going to be a pretty good fight. Maybe it doesn't go to a decision. Maybe it does. But for Jotko, he's coming off of a win over Misha Serkinov via split decision. He showed pretty good boxing in that fight, showed some good takedown defense. He's not necessarily pouring it on guys, right? He's not like one of these strikers who's going out there. He's got pretty low volume. He also has multiple decision victories in his last fight. So he's not necessarily finishing guys. Takedown defense is at 83%. Obviously, against a guy like Gerald Meerschaert, he's going to need that here. So he's going to need to keep the fight standing. I think if he can keep the fight standing, I think he might outclass Gerald Meerschaert, at least, maybe after the first couple of exchanges, maybe into the second round, maybe he's able to do something a little bit more. Obviously, for Jotko, too, he can't get stuck against the fence, right? He wants to stand out in the open. It's not going to be good for him if he's getting, pressed up against the fence or anything like that. For Meerschaert, a lot of fights, obviously, a lot of submission victories as well, so pretty good for him. The one thing I will say, though, is he is coming off of a win streak, 3-fight win streak, but it's not necessarily against the best guys in the world. I guess, he has definitely been an underdog. He's able to get these submissions, but man, if you look at his stand-up, outside of landing some pretty good body kicks, he actually does have a really good 1-2, good left-hand power, like I said, good body kicks, but it's only like in that first round. After that first round, maybe even towards the end of the first round, he just starts to, his striking just gets a little bit sloppy for my liking, and that's kind of where he tries to go in for those submissions, which he obviously is very capable of doing, right? So there's a reason why he does it, because he knows if he gets these guys in these bad spots, he's going to be able to win the fight. So that's a great thing for him. Now in this fight, though, I think Jotko's just going to have the better stand-up. And it's going to be on Meerschaert to do something, again, fairly quickly. Maybe he's getting his ass beat. Maybe in the second, third round, he tries to go for a submission. But I just think Jotko's just going to have the far better striking on the feet. And maybe Jotko's able to put something together, land big on him, and put him away early. Or Meerschaert's able to drown him out, get him into the second, third round, and maybe pull off a submission. But I think if Jotko fights smart in this one, right, he has pretty good takedown defense. If he's able to keep that up, keep the fight standing, kind of just beat him up, man. I think you can beat him up with his striking. Meerschaert's going to start to get a little bit tired. And if Meerschaert can't take him down because he's just a little bit labored and all that, I just think Jotko's going to have the better, I think he's going to land the better shots on the feet, throw some good leg kicks, go to the body. And maybe Jotko's able to get a finish, but I just see more of, kind of a slow-paced fight towards the end. especially if Meerschaert's extremely tired and Jotko's having success with those takedown defense, right? So he's not letting him get taken down, and he's not throwing himself into any bad positions here. So I'm going to go Krzysztof Jotko to defeat Gerald GM3 Meerschaert. Obviously Meerschaert can pull off that submission, but I'm going to go Jotko to defeat him by a unanimous decision. And then we move on into the second fight on the main card. We have a featherweight bout with Darren Elkins, the Damage, taking on Tristan Connelly. 27-10 for Elkins, 14-7 for Connelly. This is going to be, I think this is going to be a really great fight. I mean, it could be a great fight, right? Maybe it's a little bit sloppy depending on what we see here. But for Darren Elkins, coming off a loss against Cub Swanson, round 1 KO TKO, just a dominant performance by Cub Swanson. He really had Darren Elkins really had nothing for him. He just got outclassed pretty big time in the striking, and it just shows too that he relies a lot on just kind of getting hit, ending up in some crazy scramble, and then he's trying to make the most out of it. And then in that, if he's able to get a submission or he's able to get the better position, then he's on top of you, landing ground and pound. It's kind of what he's going for, right? So Elkins relies highly on just getting that crazy style. And possibly, able to get a rear naked choke or landing something good. But so outside of that, he defeated Derek Minor. He defeated him by KO TKO round 2. In a fight where, it was another comeback. He's kind of getting beat up in that first round, but then he's able to come back in the second round. It lost to Nate Landwehr, Ryan Hall, Ricardo Lamas, Alexandr Volkanovski. So he's definitely had a lot of losses as well. Granted, it might be against guys who are able to do a little bit more on the feet, defend the takedowns kind of thing going on there. So, this fight is sketch because I think Tristan Connelly, right, he's coming off a loss via Pat Sabatini via unanimous decision in a fight where, he didn't necessarily get his ass beat, but, apparently had neck surgery after that fight or whatever. So, it's a little sketch, right? It's Pat Sabatini, losing unanimous decision isn't the worst thing in the world. And I don't really feel like he got the showcase too much there in that fight because he really wasn't able to do too much. He did get dropped in that fight as well, so that's a little bit concerning. I don't think we've really fully seen Connelly do anything too much in his UFC round. So, but I don't know how he's going to look after 2 neck surgeries. I do think he can land some pretty big shots, and obviously he has a BJJ black belt, and the ground game is there, right? So we saw that against Michel Pereira. He was able to get 2 takedowns in that fight too. So, I mean, the ground game is there. We have to really see what he's going to be able to do on the ground, whether he's going to be able to match Darren Elkins. This is a sketchy fight just because, I want to pick Elkins just because, right? The initial thing was like maybe Elkins just because he can create that chaos. But then at the same time, I don't really know what we're going to get from Connelly. So it's like, maybe he looks good. Maybe he's able to pour it on Elkins early and he actually takes him out. Maybe Elkins is a little bit done, right? Maybe he's taking too much damage. So, it's kind of sketchy fight, but let's say neither of them do too well. Maybe they both try to play it safe, and maybe you would side with Elkins in that matter because he can take it to the deep waters. But I'm just afraid that we haven't seen too much of Connelly yet to count him out, right? I don't want to say like, oh, he's going to get his ass beat. And next thing you know, he's like knocking out Elkins in round 1 or something. So I'm going to go Tristan Connelly on this one. I'm not too confident in taking him like by a finish because I don't think he has the striking like Cub Swanson does necessarily, but I am interested to see how he's able to, if he's not going to be, if he has a good ground game, if he has good takedown defense, if he can keep this fight standing, maybe he's able to land the swifter shots, land the more precise shots, and test the chin of Elkins throughout 3 rounds. It might get ugly, but I'm gonna go Tristan Connelly on this one. I think if you take Elkins, maybe it's by like a 3rd round KO TKO or something like that. Maybe Connelly is winning initially and then he slowly just dies. But I'm gonna go Tristan Connelly on this one just because I like to see what we're gonna get from him. So I'll go with Tristan Connelly to defeat Darren Elkins. I'll take him to win by a decision. Let me move on into the 3rd fight on the main card. We have another fight where there's going to be some grappling going on here in this fight. Maybe not too much striking, honestly. Maybe definitely not too much striking at least. So we have a lightweight bout with Jared Gordon, coming in 18-4. The Flash Gordon, Grant KGD Dawson with a 17-1-1 record. Now for Jared Gordon, he's coming in with a win over Joe Solecki via split decision. Good wrestling. Definitely has some pretty good wrestling. He has pretty big hooks. Jared Gordon likes to throw some pretty big hooks, and he doesn't have power behind it. But against a guy who's going to be able to pick have that more precise and technical striking, they're really going to take advantage of that. And I think Gordon definitely leaves his chin open in some of those exchanges. When he's in close, he likes to land some pretty big uppercuts. He definitely looks for that, and he likes to fight in close, right? He wants to close that distance. He wants to get on the inside and see what he can do with that kind of, I would say, kind of like a little bit of a wild kind of striking. Now, granted, I don't know if he's going to be able to do that here, just because and I don't know if he's going to be able to get maybe he's the one getting taken down, because Grant Dawson, I think, is going to definitely be the better wrestler here, and I think he'll be the stronger fighter. Now, for Grant Dawson, he's coming over a draw against Ricky Glenn in a fight where I think most people thought he won, if anything, maybe by a split decision. He did get 3 takedowns in that fight. Glenn almost had him out in that third round, but Glenn's a pretty strong fighter, definitely a lengthy fighter, and he was able to kind of deal with the takedowns. Not necessarily deal with them, because he just got taken down and he wasn't able to really get back up. But in that third round, he definitely fought a lot better, and I think he 10-8'd him, and then that's kind of what got the draw. Grant Dawson, like I said, I think on the feet, he doesn't really have too much to offer. He's definitely content with just diving in for those takedowns, which, again, he definitely has good control on the floor, a good grinding style. But when you start diving in for takedowns and it gets a little sloppy, if you have a better fighter, maybe they're looking for some uppercuts, maybe they're looking for some knees, maybe they're trying to look for something. And if you make it too sloppy, you can definitely get caught. So it's a little bit concerning for Grant Dawson if the fight goes on and he's not getting takedowns or something, that maybe Gordon's going to line him up for some shots. I will say, though, when Dawson does take you down, it's not just like, oh, let me lie on you. He definitely tries to look for some better positions. I just think Glenn was a pretty tough opponent. He defeated Leonardo Santos via KO TKO in round number 3 with the final second. He can land some pretty nasty ground and pound on the floor, so I would look for that as well if Grant Dawson's able to get him down. I think he's going to start to go to work with him. And then even on the feet, though, I think Dawson can land some pretty big shots. And if he can take advantage of Gordon getting a little bit too wild, I think he can land some good shots on him as well. So we'll have to see what happens here. This is an interesting fight. I do think I side more with Grant Dawson, just because I like that he can, probably defend the takedown if Gordon's going in for takedowns. And then I also like that he can go for the takedowns himself. And I would assume he's probably going to try to do that. He has to be a little bit wary, though, on the feet if he's getting pieced up or anything like that, because I could see Gordon trying to make it just a little bit of a war, getting in that close distance and lighting him up with some wild exchanges. But Dawson's going to shoot in for the takedown, and I think I kind of trust Dawson to get in there. And if he's landing some big shots on the floor, man, we might see another third round KO TKO. They're both a little bit tired, but Dawson's the one that's able to get the takedown. Then he's on top of him, dropping some bombs in there, and he might finish them. So I'm gonna go Grant Dawson on this one. I am a little bit concerned about his striking, but I do think his wrestling will hold up here, and I like that when he takes people down, he can land some big shots. So I'm gonna go Grant Dawson to defeat Jared Gordon. I'm also gonna win by KO TKO on the floor in round number 3. And then we move on into the 4th fight on the main card, and this is probably one of those fights where I really think they're giving Andrei Fili the fight to just run through the guy, right? Not that maybe he won't run through him, but I just think this is kind of like a makeup fight for what happened last time with Andrei Fili. Obviously, Andrei Fili getting the disqualification loss, or just a no contest, I guess, against Daniel Pineda via the eye poke. He would have won that fight by unanimous decision if he wouldn't have just finished him anyways. So for that one, I would consider that a win for Andrei Fili. And then obviously before that, he lost to Bryce Mitchell, but a lot of people are losing to Bryce Mitchell. He got taken down 7 times. So yeah, Andrei Touchy Fili, 21-8, won no contest. Joanderson, Tubaro, Brito, 12-3-1, coming off of a loss as well. So for Joanderson, he's coming off a loss over Bill Algio. That fight, he didn't really have too much there. He's definitely started to slow down in that fight. Brito was starting to slow down in that fight. Pretty content going for the takedowns. He does have good leg kicks. He presses forward to get those takedowns. But his striking is just, man, if you look at Andre Fili's striking where it's very flowy, he's going in and out, he's landing some good shots, he's mixing up the combinations, he's slamming kicks into the body, going to the head with the head kicks, a really great jab, and I would also say Andre Fili can definitely go for a takedown here or there, and his takedown defense is pretty good, so I wouldn't count out his grappling as well. But I just think on the feet, right? So let's say their grappling kind of nullifies each other, whatever. So it's a stand-up fight. Well, I just think Fili's going to be a little bit too much for him on the feet based on what we've seen with Brito. His striking is just a little bit too sloppy, and I can kind of see kind of the same thing that happened in the last fight. I can see Fili piecing him up, kind of like he did to Daniel Pineda, and hopefully he doesn't eye poke him or something like that. But I can kind of just see him piecing him up, landing the better shots, and then kind of just breaking him. And I think Fili's going to want to, finish this fight, especially, and get him out of there and move on to the next one. I guess he has to be a little bit wary just of getting submitted. Maybe something like that. Maybe Brito goes for it all early in the first round, and he tries to submit him or pull a guillotine. I don't know. You never know what can happen with these guys, but I just think Fili's gonna be I think Fili's gonna beat him up pretty good. So I'm gonna go Andrei Touchy Fili to defeat Joanderson to borrow Brito. I'll take him to win by round 2 KO TKO. Let's move on into the co-main event of the evening, and this is one of those classic sketch heavyweight fights, just because both guys. You got one guy who's a veteran in the game, but then at the same time, I could see him just getting knocked out. And then you have another guy who's not a heavyweight, that isn't necessarily the best fighter in the world, that can just kind of get outpointed in a decision victory, a decision loss to this guy. So you have Andrei the Pitbull Arlovski coming in with 33-20. So a ton of fights, 2 no contests. And then you have Jake the Prototype Collier coming in here with a 13-6 record. So obviously, Arlovski's the legend, the experienced fighter. This dude fights everyone at heavyweight. He doesn't care, right? He doesn't care if he gets knocked out or he's the one winning. But I will say Arlovski has not won by a finish since May 23rd of 2015 against Travis Brown. So that is a little bit concerning as far as banking on him to get any sort of finish here. I think he'll be content doing what he usually does, and that's kind of just outpointing people to a decision, especially these young guys. For Andrei Arlovski's coming over a win over Jared Vanderer via split decision. And that's the other thing, too. It's not like he's defeating guys outright and destroying them, right? Maybe he's getting a little close decision, but he's pretty much outstriking, outvoluming a lot of these younger guys. Good boxing, good cardio. Not worried about his cardio for heavyweight. He definitely can keep going for 3 rounds. Good calf kicks, good speed. He's usually probably going to be the faster fighter, although Collier might be the faster fighter here, but not in the same way. Arlovski's the faster, may have speed, right? So Collier's not necessarily like fighting the way Arlovski's fights, where he's like slamming in a leg kick, going to the head, or using a really good jab. He can get a little sloppy with it, but he does have quick hands when he does get in close. Arlovski's not going to brawl with him, right? So he's going to try to piece him up. And I think if he can stay away from Collier getting a little bit too wild and close, I think he can probably just beat him up. I don't see Collier being able to like take down Andrei Arlovski at will, so that I don't think that's going to happen. And we've seen Collier slow. We saw that against Carlos Felipe. He definitely slowed down, and if you slow down like that against Arlovski, yeah, you might be able to take him out, land one shot, put him to sleep. But Arlovski's going to keep going. He's going to fight technical. He's going to jab you to death. He's not going to slow down. And the calf kicks might help, right, if he starts going to the leg. Collier, even against Chase Sherman, there were a couple exchanges in there. Yeah, he did win the fight via rear naked choke, but it was against Chase Sherman. And there was some exchanges in there that just looked really sloppy. And Arlovski I don't see him engaging in a lot of that stuff. Because when was the last time? So he lost to Tom Aspinall, who obviously is on the rise right now, taking out a lot of guys. But, he beat Felipe Lins. He beat Tanner Bosner, who's a pretty athletic guy, too. That, Tanner Bosner is not a slouch necessarily. He's not the best fighter in the world, but he took out Ovin St. Preux. So yeah, I mean, he's not the best fighter, but Arlovski was able to win that fight via decision, and then beat Chase Sherman via decision, Carlos Felipe via decision. But yeah, I'm not really worried about Arlovski outside of him just getting knocked out. Like I don't really see Collier doing too much. I don't see Collier submitting him or something. I see Collier being just able to land like a big shot in close. It might not be the prettiest shot either, but it'll work, right? It'll take him out. But I think more likely we see another classic performance by Andrei Arlovski where he's just kind of piecing him up, going to the body. Collier starts to slow down. And it gets to a point where Arlovski's kind of just point finding him and then getting that decision. So I'm going to go Andrei Arlovski on this one. He has to be careful. Obviously, Collier can land a big shot. It's heavyweight. We all know how that goes. But I'm going to go Andrei Arlovski. I think if, Collier's not able to land multiple big shots, I just think as the fight goes on, Arlovski will start to pull away. So I'll go Andrei Arlovski to defeat Jake Collier. I'll take him to win by a decision. Let's move on into the main event of the evening. We have Rob Font taking on Marlon Chito Vera. 19-5 for Rob Font. For Marlon Vera, we have 18-7-1. Rob Font's coming off a loss against Jose Aldo. And then Marlon Chito Vera, he's coming off that big KO win against Frankie Edgar. So for both fighters have fought Aldo. So that's pretty good to see. I think Rob Font did pretty good against Aldo, even though he lost. He definitely outvalued him. That was pretty good to see. The one with Chito Vera, it was a close fight. No, I don't want to say. Yeah, I guess it was a close fight with Chito Vera and Aldo. And Vera was able to, but the thing there was that Vera was able to use the grappling more to an advantage, whereas Font wasn't necessarily able to take down Aldo. He did take him down once, but he wasn't able to use that too much. But I think out of both fighters, I think Font had more success on the feet against Aldo when it came to the stand-up. And I think here Font's probably going to have the advantage in the stand-up. It's just more of whether or not Vera's able to kind of drown him out, right? And press him against the fence and just work for those takedowns and kind of tire out Font to where his striking really isn't too much of a concern. And then we obviously have to see 5 rounds what Marlon Vera looking like, because we know Rob Font can go 5 rounds with the very best in the world, right? So that's good to see for Rob Font. This is a pretty good fight, man. I think it's be a pretty close fight. Marlon Vera always dangerous with submissions. You never know what you're going to get with him. He could definitely put Rob Font in an awkward position and then submit him. He's had close fights. He's fought top guys at this level. A good amount of his wins too come by way of some sort of finish, so that's always good to see. Before Aldo, Rob Font beat Cody Garbrandt, Marlon Moraes, Ricky Simon, Sergio Pettis. Those are pretty good wins. Even though, like, Cody Garbrandt obviously is not who he used to be. Marlon Moraes obviously not who he used to be either. But he's fought top-level competition. He's looked better in his last fights. Had really good volume. I mean, even when he's losing, he had more volume than Aldo, and that's hard to do. Oh, man, this is a weird fight to pick just because I just feel like Font's going to really need to defend those takedowns and stay away from all that grappling if he wants to win. Because I do think he can win if he's on the feet. And I just think it's one of those fights where he can kind of break down Vera over 5 rounds, right? So I wouldn't look for Font to finish him like in the first or second round. I think he would try to break him down with the striking. Maybe mix in some defensive grappling. I don't think he'll be shooting in for takedowns or anything like that, at least not early on. Go for some good kicks. Go to the body, just do anything he can wear on Vera, right? And then striking wise, and just kind of press him, right? Because I don't think he wants Vera pressing him against the fence. So I think Font's gonna get in his face and be able to do a lot, use that aggression to his advantage. Now, obviously for Vera, he's gonna want to close the distance, drain that energy out of Font. So push him up against the fence, work that grappling, see what he can do with that. And then that might open up the striking for him. He has pretty good leg kicks, good front kicks. We saw that. Body lock, takedowns. He's going to try to, I just think he's going to try to latch on to Font and try to drown him out. So Font can't let Font get into the groove with the striking, because I think Rob Font starts to piece him up over the course of 5 rounds. I don't know if he's going to be able to finish him. I don't think Vera's been finished in a long time, so I'm not banking on Font finishing Vera here, and I'm also really not banking on Marlon Vera being able to finish Rob Font in this one, because I think Font's a tough guy. One thing I guess you could say is like maybe he gets submitted, right? Maybe Vera's able to submit him, but I still think that's gonna be. I think that might be harder than what everyone might think. So I just like Rob Font. I think he can break him over the course of 5 rounds. Break him in the sense where he's just fighting a little bit better and he wins on the scorecards. Not that he's able to take him out, because I think Vera's tough, man, and I think Vera's gonna look for that grappling, and that could slow down the fight for him and all that. So. And it might open the striking for him over the course of 5 rounds. But I like Rob Font, man. I think Rob Font can get in his face, have the better boxing, defend the takedowns when he needs to. I don't think Vera is Aldo, right? I definitely don't think Vera has the striking of Aldo, even though I think it's obviously improving. But I like Rob Font. So I'm going to go Rob Font on this one, with that aggression, get in his face and box him up, tee off on him over the course of 5 rounds, and we can see what happens there. But either way, I think this will be a close, good fight. So I'll go Rob Font to defeat Marlon Chito Vera. I'll take him to win by a decision. So that'll do it, guys, for my UFC Vegas 53 predictions for the main card. Looking forward to the main card. Looking forward to this event. After this, we have a pretty big fight coming up after this, May 7th. Charles Oliveira taking on Justin Gaethje, Rose Namajunas taking on Carla Esparza, Tony Ferguson taking on Michael Chandler, Shogun Rua versus Ovince St. Preux, Donald Cerrone versus Joe Lozon. So we got some pretty good fights coming up. The pay-per-view UFC 274 after this one. So let's get through this one, guys, and then we can move on to the next one. So like the video, subscribe if you want to, comment down below who you're picking, let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the next video.